What's up guys, my name is Ace, and we're just over a week into the life cycle of Black Ops 4. So today I wanted to make a video sharing my current main criticisms of the game. Keep in mind that in general, I am loving this game. I feel like this is an awesome game, there's a lot of potential here, and it's going to be an excellent year of Call of Duty. There's so much to do in this game, and I really enjoy it. So I don't want this video to come off as too complainy or just like whining about the game, because I'm having a blast with it overall. However, there are some pretty major flaws and issues that I have with this game that I would love to see addressed, and I just wanted to share that with you guys today and kind of get it out in the community. I know a lot of other people share these exact same concerns, so let's just hop right into it. The first thing we're going to be talking about today, and the big elephant in the room, is the connections and the inconsistency with the connections in multiplayer specifically. Blackout as well, but you don't notice it quite as much in Blackout because you're in a lot fewer gunfights than you would be in a regular multiplayer match. Which, by the way, I do want to mention that most of this is going to be focused around regular multiplayer because that's generally what I have been playing. I've been playing a fair amount of Blackout, and I will mention a few things, but generally speaking, we're going to be talking about multiplayer throughout this video. And with connections, it was just recently found out that the servers are running at a 20 Hz tick rate, whereas in the beta for multiplayer, they were running at 60 Hz. So we have seen a pretty significant downgrade from the beta build of the game when it comes to the server quality. And this has definitely been noticeable. Throughout the beta, the connections were generally quite good. I was praising the connections quite a bit. That's not to say that it didn't have some laggy situations or laggy games, but generally the beta was pretty decent when it came to connections. Since launch, I've been having so many inconsistencies with connections. Now, I do want to say inconsistencies because sometimes it's great. Sometimes I actually feel like a god that can't be touched. But then there's the other times where it feels like the enemies have that luck and I can't do anything against them. Nothing is more frustrating in Call of Duty than having your gunfights feel like a coin toss, where you really don't know what's going to happen. Your skill level in that face-to-face gunfight is pretty much irrelevant, and it's basically whoever has the better connection at that time ends up coming out on top. And I've been getting that a lot since launch. I'm not one to normally rage quit in a game, but in Black Ops 4, I'll admit, I have backed out of a few lobbies because I simply couldn't do anything against the enemies. It felt like they were gods compared to me. And that's something that just really needs to be mentioned. Something to go along with this, it's not necessarily just the tick rate as well. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the tick rate. If you solve that, if you bump that back up to 60 Hz, all of the connection problems will be solved. It's definitely not that either. I have been noticing when you look at the network indicator, the latency values are also wildly inconsistent. Sometimes, keep in mind, I'm playing from Norway now, so I'm in Europe. There's plenty of servers around. Sometimes I have a latency value of roughly 20 to 30 milliseconds, which is awesome. Other times, for no particular reason at all, it bumps all the way up to 100 to 120, somewhere around there. So I don't really know what's going on there. I don't know why it's not just putting me on the closest server to me that will give me that roughly 30 millisecond ping. In either case, there definitely needs to be some work done in this area, and thankfully, Treyarch has at least acknowledged the issue. They haven't laid out a specific game plan or anything with this, but in a Reddit post yesterday, they did acknowledge the issue. They mentioned that what they were aiming for at launch was stability over performance, so they just wanted the servers to be able to run and handle people without crashing, and things will be improving over time. Now, I'm hoping this timeline is very fast, like I'm talking within the next week or two, because this isn't something that I can live with for a super long time. It kind of brings me back to the Black Ops 2 days. If you guys remember at launch with Black Ops 2, it was a similar sort of story. A lot of gunfights felt like they were just a coin toss and you had no real control over them. Some games you were an absolute god, other games you simply couldn't buy a kill. It feels pretty much like that, and I hope we get past this stage soon. I do have faith that it will level out over time. That's normally how Call of Duty games go. I just hope it starts happening very soon. Moving on to the next thing I want to mention, and keep in mind these are in no particular order, this is the 9-bang. Now, my biggest complaint with the 9-bang is more so focused around Blackout, where you only have one life. I feel like the 9-bang is just way too powerful in that mode. The fact that it can blind you for so long and also make it so you can't go prone, you can't even crouch, you can basically just hip fire your gun. You can't really see much, you can't heal, you can't reload. You're basically useless for a fairly long period of time, especially in Blackout where you just have one life. I feel like it is quite simply too powerful. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to be nerfed into the ground to where it's completely useless. I just feel like it needs to be toned down in some way. Perhaps make it so you at least have the ability to crouch or go prone, so you have some ability to do some sort of an evasive maneuver when you get hit by that. Or maybe decrease the radius a little bit so it doesn't affect you as much if you're in the outside edge of that current radius where the 9-bang hits you. Something along those lines would be really nice to see, like I said, most specifically in Blackout, but it does also apply to multiplayer, because in multiplayer as well, when you get hit by a 9-bang, it's basically game over. You usually just accept your death at that point. And I feel like it would be nice if there was at least some sort of counterplay so you didn't feel 100% helpless, you just feel a little bit helpless. I really feel equipment should give you a leg up in a gunfight rather than just giving you free kills all the time. Next up on my list here, we have spawns, most specifically spawns in Domination as well as the TDM style game modes. Within the first few days of launch, I would say Domination was completely unplayable. It was absolutely terrible. Spawns made no sense whatsoever. I would have enemies spawning in what should have been my spawn, or I was spawning in what should have been the enemy's spawn, and it was just an absolute mess. I will admit that they have made improvements here. Actually, on some of the maps, they added extra spawn points for some extra relief so they could spawn enemies or players in areas where they're nice and safe. So it has gotten better, and I really noticed this on Friday's update. It definitely got better. However, it's still not there yet, in my opinion. There still needs to be some work done in Domination, as well as the TDM style modes. I feel like they need work. And until then, I'm pretty much just sticking to Control, because spawns are actually predictable and they make sense in that mode. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about weapon balancing, more specifically the SMG weapon balancing. For all of the assault rifles, LMGs, as well as tactical rifles, I feel like there's some great choices in all of those categories, and I feel very comfortable mixing it up between any of those guns within those areas. SMGs, on the other hand, I feel like in general just fall completely behind all of those. If you look at the actual statistical time to kill values, right up close where SMGs should be dominant, they tend to kill, on average, slower than assault rifles in this game. There are a couple exceptions here. Also, a thing to keep in mind with SMGs is headshots don't matter aside from the MX9 with high caliber, whereas assault rifles, for instance, with high caliber and sometimes even without high caliber, headshots will help, which will even further reduce time to kill. In its current state, the SMGs, I feel, don't really have much of a place in this game, and I feel they need to be tweaked first. I think SMGs need a buff before we touch anything else. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, nerf the ICR or nerf the Maddox or the Vapor or whatever that is, at least for the first weapon balancing patch. Leave everything else as it is, but bring the SMGs up a little bit. For some of them, maybe give them a short 5-shot kill range, because currently all of the SMGs start at a 6-shot kill. I don't think it would hurt to have some of them, like the Cordite for instance, have a decently short 5-shot kill range. It doesn't need to be long by any means so it can compete with assault rifles at mid-range. It's just to help them carve out their role in those really close quarter situations, because as it is right now, I feel more comfortable with a Maddox at point blank range than I do with any one of the SMGs in this game, and that's a problem. Moving on to the next thing I have on my list, this is some criticism around the new loot stream system that they have in the game. Now, this system looks quite promising, and it looks to be better so far at least than we've seen with the supply drop system in the past. For those of you guys that aren't familiar, essentially you level up through tiers, and at each tier you get a new item. Some of the items are randomized, some of them are set, and these levels appear to be earned through time played alone. My big piece of criticism about this system currently, while I think it is cool and it has potential, and I do want to see what's going to happen with it because there is still more to come that we don't know about yet, but my biggest criticism right now is we don't really have a proper way of tracking our progression through that. And I feel like this needs to happen. As it is right now, we just see a bar that fills up as we play. We don't know exactly what contributes to that. Everybody's assuming that it's primarily based on playtime, but there are some really big inconsistencies here as well that don't seem to make any sense. I really feel that leveling through these tiers should be something that we can see and track and kind of plan for and work towards. Now, I hate to bring up Fortnite because it does get brought up a fair amount within the Call of Duty community, I feel. But I like what they have done with this, where you earn those battle stars, and I think it's you get 10 battle stars and you get to your next tier. That's something where you can aim towards those goals and you can see exactly what you have to do in order to achieve that next level. You can see your progress, you can track it, and you can work towards that. In its current state with this loot stream system, it feels like it's just something going on in the background, which doesn't really give much incentive to grind through these ranks. It's just simply playtime. This brings us to the next thing I have on my list here, and this is the fact that joining a game late will count as a loss towards your combat record currently. And I thought that's something that Call of Duty did away with quite a few years ago, but for whatever reason, it's happening again. And it's quite frustrating. I've actually had some situations where I've joined a game and I literally haven't even spawned in yet and the game is just ending and I get a loss towards my combat record. Now, I'm not one to really care too much about stats, but it is still frustrating to see when something like that happens. It makes you feel like your stats are essentially worthless because it's out of your control at that point. Like, why should you get a loss? I feel like any game that is joined beyond the, 20% mark should not count as a loss on your combat record. Next up, another relatively minor thing. This one is a little bit more gameplay related though. This is the healing delay that you get when you take damage from fire or radiation. Currently, if you take damage from one of those sources, you will be unable to heal for 15 seconds. And 15 seconds in Call of Duty terms is a lifetime, literally a lifetime for a lot of people. There are actually some situations where you're better off jumping off the map. You'll be back in the fight with full health faster than you would be if you laid down and just waited for that cooldown to finish so that you could heal yourself. Now, I do kind of understand where they were going with that, and I'm fine with having some sort of a penalty just to differentiate that damage type. But I feel even a 5 to 10 second delay, it would be a much more appropriate delay. It still takes you out of the fight for a decent amount of time, waiting to heal, but it's not to the point where it's so ridiculous that you might as well jump off the map. This brings us to the last thing that I wanted to talk about in today's video. Of course, this isn't a 100% comprehensive list of every little minor nitpicky detail that I don't like about this game currently. But the last thing I want to mention is a glitch that I wasn't planning on mentioning, but it's happened enough now that I feel like it is worth mentioning. This is the glitch that prevents you from healing or using equipment or basically doing anything but running around and shooting your gun. I've experienced this glitch about 4 or 5 times now in regular multiplayer, and unfortunately I experienced this glitch in Blackout as well, which is very, very scary because when that happens, you literally can't heal yourself, even though you have all the heals in the world. I actually had to get my teammate to kill me and then revive me so that I could heal myself. And if I didn't have a teammate available, I would have been just completely screwed, and there goes the whole game. At least in multiplayer with respawn modes, I can just jump off the map or run to my death, get myself killed, and then it will fix itself. But this is something that I feel really needs to be fixed. It's happening a little too often for it not to be looked at this point. I don't know if you guys have experienced this. You could actually let me know in the comment section below if you guys have experienced this glitch as well, where no matter what you do, you can keep spamming those triggers, nothing will happen at all. You can't use your equipment, you can't heal, you also can't pop your specialist ability. It's really, really frustrating, and I hope they get on top of this bug soon. But with that, I think I've rambled on for enough, and I've shared the main criticisms that I currently have with this game. Like I said, in general, I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying myself. I really just hope they get on top of some of these issues. Of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what constructive criticism do you have for Black Ops 4 currently? I'd appreciate it if you could focus on things that can realistically be fixed with updates, but of course, that's up to you. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.